out of the chat.
So did you show any of the videos?
No, I didn't know what order, but they're all lined up.
Fabulous. All right. Well, good. All right. I'm gonna just bust right into something, okay? Performance art is something that you have to experience. CIA, FBI, CDC, DOJ, IRS, ICE, ¿qué es más macho? FBI or CIA? ¿Qué es más macho? IRS or ICE? ¿Qué es más macho? DOJ or CDC? Let's remember the Atacama people, the Chitimacha, the Tunica, the Homa, the Natchez. In 2018, New Orleans celebrated its tricentennial. And they celebrated a French colonizer, Bienville, who began exacting genocide and near extermination as soon as he landed in what he called New Orleans. Previously, it was called Bulbancha. So I like to remember our indigenous people, because by this December of 2020, it will have been 400 years since the Pilgrims arrived on Plymouth Rock. So I always say, if the Pilgrims arrived without papers, why were they not deported? With Columbus and his 3 ships, they, the Europeans, were the first illegal aliens in hemispheric Americas. Ooh, take that to the bank, baby, darling, boo, hoo, you. The United States of Amnesia seduces you to embrace forgetting. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the products for which it stands, one TV nation, under God, indivisible, with cable, HBO, and Netflix for all. En el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo. Amén. En el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of Amnesia. Let's dare to be radical, and let's dare to remember. Fugitive Slave Act 1793. Indian Removal Act 1830. Ooh. Chinese Exclusion Act 1882. Mexican Repatriation 1929. Japanese Internment 1940. Operation Wetback 1954. Arizona's SB 1070, Anti-Immigrant Law 2010. Zero Tolerance Policy 2018, Anti-Immigrant Law at the border, written into legislation by Jefferson, Beauregard, Sessions, a living monument to the Confederacy. Ooh. The most radical thing you can do in this country is there to remember. Why? Because the United States of Amnesia seduces you to embrace forgetting. Why? Because it would not benefit the country if you knew its origin story. If this country was a Marvel superhero, let's suppose, its origin story would be quite dark. It would begin with the near genocide and extermination of native people. Ow! Because the United States of Amnesia seduces you to embrace forgetting that this so-called beacon of democracy was founded and established on stolen lands. Stolen from the near 500 tribes in the United States of Amnesia by the colonial fathers, who dared, and Jefferson, Thomas, could be a CIA intervention. Some jokes I do just for me. And Jefferson, who I consider the Adam of this country, with the original sin, who penned all men are created equal, he stopped that equality at the plantation door. Because Jefferson had some 100+ slaves. And the United States of Amnesia seduces you to embrace forgetting that the empire was built on stolen lands by the enslavement of African people, men, women, and children. And I live in New Orleans, one of the biggest slave port cities, one of the biggest Catholic slave port cities of the growing nation. Ow! So when you hear about children at the border in jail camps, in cages, nothing new. In New Orleans, black bodies, African men and women and children, were in cages as well. And sometimes displayed on auction blocks to be sold. Because the United States of Amnesia seduces you to embrace forgetting that the northern territories of Mexico, from Texas to California, to Oklahoma, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, were all part of the northern part of Mexico. So, I was performing in Mexico at the early part of the year, Mexico City, and I saw a shirt that said, "Make America Mexico again." Ow! And I want to make one of those hats. Just call it Mama. Make America Mexico. Some jokes I do just for me. So you're never going to learn that a lesser-known president, Pope, in his inaugural speech, he beat the drums of war. And he said, Mexico, we're going to come over and take over your territory. And they did. The United States invaded the northern territories of Mexico, from Texas to California, Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and appropriated, sold those lands. And the rightful Mexican landowner, like so many other treaties that were written by the pale-faced man, the rightful Mexican landowners were told that they could keep their lands if they agreed with the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty of 1848. Now, I want you to do a little something after class. I want you to Google. I want you to Google the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty of 1848, and you will discover that that treaty wrote into law and allowed the United States to steal all those northern territories, but promised the rightful Mexican landowners that they could keep their lands. Do any of you think that they were allowed to keep their lands?
No.
And in fact,
In fact, what they did, the good people, we're going to have a change of voice now at this moment. I'm going to go over here and change my voice. Yes, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, what the new owners did is they made sure that if the rightful Mexican landowners did not give up their lands, that the entire family was lynched. Ow!
Excuse me, sir, I had no idea that there were lynchings that went on in the Southwest.
What they also did is they recruited German immigrants and Irish immigrants from across the Atlantic, as they would, to come and help them take over those rightful Mexican lands.
And again, are you telling me, sir, that there were lynchings across the Southwest?
I think I'm telling you that, yes. And again, they would lynch entire families if they chose not to give up their lands. Now, the same kind of segregation that took place in the Deep South, where many and millions of African people, once they were emancipated, they were still restricted to something called Jim Crow laws. And I call them in the Southwest Juan Crow laws. Ooh, look at that, it's a little wordplay going on. I don't even know why I'm doing my hand like that. But so what I want you to do is when you Google, look it up. Because Latinos, we love to Google. I love to say Google. Google. And you've got to know that Google is actually a Latin term. Well, actually, to be honest, Google is an old Aztec term. From the Aztec goddess, Google Quetzalcoatl, which means look shit up as a know your history in the United States of amnesia, because it deduces you to embrace forgetting. Thank you very much, and the audience goes well. You know, it's really it's a pleasure to be here. You know, I've known Anne-Liese for many, many moons. And I was talking to Jim about Anne-Liese's earlier show. What was the name of the show when you did?
Ego Rights, you saw, that's how we met.
Right, when you did the Wonder Woman routine.
Mm-hmm.
Quite amazing. Ego Rights. So that's a little sample of what I do within performance. That's just like, that's like what I call a collage.
Yeah.
So what I generally see is I see performance art as the bastard child of a drunken one-night stand between the visual arts and theater. Run that by you again. I think he just said that he sees performance art as the bastard child of a drunken one-night stand between visual arts and theater. Damn, never heard that before. So I see this like like a black sheep of the family, like myself, right? Like I was raised Catholic, but I'm post-Catholic. Some jokes I do just so it's a hybrid genre, and I came from the visual arts and literature and poetry. And I studied theater as literature, and then when I was going to school, I started doing spoken word performances, going to the spoken word performance places way back in the days, in the 80s, and I was in New York. Eventually, I performed at the New York Poets Cafe. They produced some of my early solos when I was back there. But for me, performance art is this open air genre, right? Where many things can happen. It's like a cauldron. It's like cooking. I love to cook, right? I'm a vegetarian. I'm a Latino vegetarian, which is a contradiction in terms. Again, some jokes I do just for me. So my work is influenced, as you will see on Saturday, by visual drama and ritual. Like today, you know, when I come, that was just a little bit of a ritual, right? Anne-Liese has been talking about ritual. Ritual, if you Google, if you look up the word ritual, it means something done often, right? It also means something that could be sacred. I find my work on stage is where the sacred and the profane meet, as a ritual for me to explore the trauma of the immigrant experience as an brown immigrant. And then again, we have to understand something, that even that term, you know, we're taught so many poor terms, right? Like even that term, I'm not an immigrant. I actually belong. I was born in South America and raised in North America, so I consider myself a bilingual. I actually speak French and Italian as well, quadrilingual, and I can order beers and pastries in German because I live there. Some jokes I do just for me. I consider myself a citizen of the hemispheric Americas. Being brown and being born, being a mestizo, and I am part of the progeny of the Spanish colonial conquest of indigenous people in South America. And I'm part Quechua. That's the Quechua tribe. That's the most Ecuadorian people and Bolivian people are Quechua. And my motto is, or at least their motto before, which we Quechua you and we burn you. Again, that really never happened. Some jokes I know just for me or Anne-Liese. So, I often say I am brown, therefore I am suspect. I am Latino, therefore I am spicy. I studied out in college, therefore I am unemployed. I don't work 9 to 5, therefore I'm a rebel without applause. I often speak in Spanish to confuse my gringo audiences, therefore I'm a pain in the derriere of monolingual gatekeepers and hegemonic cultural plantation paradigms. I often use big words, therefore I'm just superfluous. Así que afilen los oídos, despierten la subconsciencia y ajusten sus cinturones filosóficos. Do not be afraid, amigos y amigas, porque se habla español aquí. Do not be afraid of the Spanish language because tostitos are here to stay. In fact, you're an improved, fat-free, and good for the economy. So if you're bilingually challenged, sharpen your ears, awake your subconscious, and adjust your philosophical seatbelts. Because it's still early in the new millennium of the 21st century. Así que America, as in Central and South America as well, because we cannot let the United States of North America take hostage the moniker of America for itself as all that is good and noble. Because we know that the United States of North America, we know the United States of North America has a tough time living up to its press release as the people of democracy. Why am I holding my right hand to my ear? I don't know. So we are not the immigrants. We've been here. The migration of indigenous people has always been part. Always. Now, I call all those borders across the universe colonial scars, because that's what they are. If we dare to look at it, we're having a moment of social reckoning, because you have to ask yourself, how many more black bodies are we going to need to have killed and pile up at the door, at the foyer of white America? I don't know. How many? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Every day, every hour, every second. No human being is illegal. No human being is illegal. No human being is illegal. Black Lives Matter. You know, Jose, you need to really rethink these things. You can't just be coming into this class and just yelling at these students. Come on. You gotta entertain them. Right. You want to play one of those videos?
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of entertainment, so for many years I was telling Jim I used to do comedy street theater. In fact, I used to jump on fire. I used to perform in the square. I used to perform all over Europe. I did Commedia dell'arte. That's my work. Is as a renegade scholar, it has historical context. It has comedy. It has visual drama. I like to work with sound and maracas and all kinds of other instruments. But my work is infused by spoken word poetry. The physical aspect is theater, visual drama, projections, and humor. And this is a piece that's called Español is verboten here. Verboten is the German word for forbidden. Verboten.
Okay, I found it.
Verboten. I love it when Germans say. I used to be in a museum. I go to museums in Germany, and I'm a big fan of German expressionists. I'm also a painter. visual artist, and I would go somewhere and I loved it when security guard go, "Das ist verboten here." So this is called Espanol is verboten here.
Alles Kunst ist geboren hier. Alles Kunst ist geboren hier.
Español is verboten here, ici dans les États-Unis. This is for the Honduran-born USA punker mama baby chick, half woman and half child, who attracts men with her scorpion look, and the passport of her Canadian lawyer father. He loved Pakistani women and found ecstasy underneath the mango tree. This is for the Chicano güerito guapo, whose father is German, mother born an Aztec from Cuernavaca, and who arrived with the name Julio Chichimeca Ehrenberger, raised on Guadalupe Street in San Antonio. For the Appalachian West Virginia mountain mama blonde, with high cheeks from her little bit of Cherokee, still pronounced after many generations, who fell in love with a Jersey, New York bred Ecuadorian brujo poet she met in New Orleans, where he lives in a metaphoric exile close to the equator. This is for hybrid America without boundaries, fluid in between her open legs that have passed many births of rainbow colors. But Español is verboten ici dans les États-Unis. And I woke up feeling like a grand insect, como una cucaracha de Kafkaesque proportions, sick with George Samsa's fear of being left behind, avec mon derrière up in the air. Alle Kunst ist verboten hier. How can that be? Not in a democracy, for even the lowest forms are guaranteed. La liberté que debe ser la première raison d'être. Yet, alle Kunst ist verboten is still verboten here. So if you do drugs, do them now. And talk to me, mes amis, tete-a-tete. For if you can't speak another language, get a tutor, because I'm turning Japanese. I really think so. But I've been told that there is no room at the multicultural inn, and I can't get no affirmative action. But I try, and I try. Y más de todo, je regrette, mon amigazos, que no se parla French aquí tampoco, porque we believe in one language, one God, and $1. Monolinguistic, monotheistic, monetary control. Así que son un par de monos todos. Ay, qué cojones. Y qu'est-ce que tu cherchez, s'il vous plaît? In a dangerous liaison between democracy and capital gains. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez? La mac cheese, croissant, wapa. Or melted fromage in between your Mac baby honey buns. Ay, caramba. ¿Dónde está la Dolce Vita Mama Leoni? Beba, please, beba, please, beba, 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 please. Remind Antonio that it's Prince Spaghetti Day. And Della Ventura, he's no friend of mine, just another old-ball pain-in-the-ass TV cop beating colored folk. And have you noticed that bread in French is spelled a lot like pain?
There we go. Now they can hear you.
All right, so I've intervened and I've dropped in on your class, and just know that this is not really me. It's a holographic figure. I'm actually still in New Orleans. We just projected a very tactile version of me here. I've been working on this for some time. I may experience a little glitching. Oh, so. Sometimes I consider myself like the Robin Williams of performance art. Esoteric reference number 55. Oh. So, quickly, any quick thoughts on what you just, like, one word, how about one word on what you just experienced between my holographic figure, the video. Amazing, wow, that's great. Amazing, no, I'm gonna go with good. Without you there, we're gonna bring you down. We don't want to get to your head. What entertainment, okay, good, brother. What were your thoughts? What word?
Remarkable.
Remarkable?
Yeah.
Okay, this side is good. Amazing, remarkable. Okay, good. Back there, young lady. Spectacular. I'm digging. Look at this. All right. Back there, my good sir. I don't know what to take that from. I'm gonna go tell my parents. I'm gonna get out of this class right now. All right. Eye-opening, great. What's that? Creative, fabulous. And you back there. Awesome. Thank you. Man, I'm thinking this stuff. All good over here too. All right, thank you. If you don't know what to think about it, I don't blame you because I'm telling you, this performance, it's a little radical for me. There's too much going on. So I'm grateful to have an opportunity to share a little bit of the madness that I engage in. These video cortaditos, they're actually on YouTube. You go to my YouTube channel and you can see a number of them that have been created recently during the pandemic because the soundtrack is from a CD that's coming out very soon, extended play of 20 years of collaboration with a music collaborator, a friend of mine that's amazing, who does all the music for all my work. He goes by the tag BA3, and our extended play is coming out. The CD and the extended play is being released later this fall. It's called Speaking Truth to Perverse Power, Volumes 1, and then we're going to follow Speaking Truth to Perverse Power, Volume 2. So thank you very much. I know that it may be time to go, right?
Wait, 12, no, we have time, 12:30 to 1:45.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so
All
you can talk,
Then let's
show more.
ask me some questions. Come on. We don't know what to say. You see what happens when we can't. I don't know what happens at camera. You'll see.
Chatters.
Your name is?
JC.
What is it?
JC.
Hey,
Where
JC.
did you start off at? Like, where did you begin your career?
Where did I begin? That's a good point. So when I was in college, I told you I saw a production of The Crucible, Arthur Miller, that blew my mind. And I didn't think about, because I was studying visual arts, so deeply dedicated to visual arts, but writing, poetry. I didn't even tell my parents because I had received, I was being accepted. I take a deep breath because I let my parents down tremendously because I realized and it wasn't like I'm not first generation. I was actually born in Guayaquil, and Guayaquil has suffered tremendous mortality, really terrible during the pandemic. A couple of months ago, I just spent an entire day into night into day reading about the way the pandemic has hit Guayaquil, where I was born. But my parents wanted me to go to MI Hoboken Institute of Technology to become an electrical engineer. I was very good in I was even studying calculus because it was so ingrained. When I was in my freshman year, my art students would go, "Yo, Jose, why are you still studying calculus and advanced calculus?" Like, I don't know. I'm still doing it. But I got accepted to go into this engineering program, and I went to the school in Hoboken, and I looked, and I was like, I don't want to do this, right? And I had a revelation. And my art teacher, at the time, I was already winning art contests, and they were already showing my work at the Jersey City Museum. That's where I grew up in Jersey City, and then later lived in New York. But my teacher said, "You're really talented in the arts. You should really reconsider." Now, because I was going on that track of wanting to do what my parents wanted me to do, I had not applied to any of the art schools, and yet I had a portfolio, and I regret that as well, because my friend Bernard Reynoso, who was also in that same art class, we had a really group of us that were really kicking butt. I mean, we're really good. He got accepted into Cooper Union, and I didn't get accepted because I was trying to follow my parents' path, and then I had this revelation, right? And I started then to actually begin thinking for myself, because I realized that I was following my parents' path. So I got two little boys. I tell them, "Listen, you're gonna have to rebel, and you have to, because that's just the intrinsic nature. Rebel. I said, before at any point in time, just rebel. And you got to rebel against me. just don't rebel and become a Republican accountant. That would really break my heart. You know, don't go way over there. Go way over there. They're in the right, yeah. So I'm left with Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, and Naomi Klein. So it's like really far. So I began thinking for myself then. And thank you for asking that question, because I went much to the chagrin of my parents. And it was too late for me to apply, so I went to a state college, but that state college in Jersey had an amazing art department. And I didn't even tell them I was studying literature or poetry. You know, I wasn't even afraid to tell them I was studying literature. That was my minor, right? So, but I began writing, and one of the art teachers said, hey, you know, you should think about performing. I had a natural nature, like I loved Halloween, and I would dress up, and you know. That's why when I wound up in New Orleans, I was like, oh, I love this place. But I began writing, and then writing my poems. And at the age of 18 or 19, I was a sophomore in college. I began performing them because the spoken word movement was happening, and I remember going to the Village, because I go to New York all the time. We would hang out in New York, and I'd seen this beat poet. He would stand on the milk crate, and he would just drop the poem from the top of his dome, right? And interesting enough, I go to this place in Hoboken called The Beaten Path that had a back room where they had spoken word, you know, poetry. And that same hippie brother was there dropping his poems, and I went up there with paper and, you know, being a little nervous, shaking, and I told myself, never again, self, will you go up there with paper again. You will memorize all your words. Kimosabi, memorize your words. So I did that. And then I began going to, you know, and then it was intrinsic, you know, but I've always known I wanted to be an artist until that moment when I was following my parents' path and when I realized it again. So thank you for that question. It brought back some memories that I'm trying to share now with my boys. That rebel, just go. I said, travel. I said, you know, when you go travel the world. And you could text me every 3 months or so. Just tell me, hey, Papa, I'm in Timbuktu. I'm good. I'm alive. All good. And I was telling that to their mom. And we're separated. We're divorced now, and it's all good. She got me to do the most radical thing, that is to have children. And I said, you know, I told them that. So, oh no, they got to reach out to me like once a week. I was like, all right. Mamas do that sometimes. But anyway, another question? Yes, what was your name up there? Sarah. Sarah? Hey, Sarah, tell me.
Do you want, like, in real life?
Excuse me?
Do you have, like, shows and stuff in real life?
Do I have shows? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You're going to see a show. The show you're going to see this weekend, if you can make it on Saturday, to Columbia Theater. And I think we're going to do we're going to do an incredible high-value production. Like, similar to what we did at Vanderbilt University when I was there a couple of years ago. We sold out a 200-seat theater. I was just in Los Angeles. We did one like that. But the Columbia Theater is probably just like Gala Hispanic Theater in D.C. We're going to do an amazing production. So, yes, I've written, at this point in my life, I've written about 11 different solos. I've got some ensemble project, as you can Google the Taco Truck Theater Project. In fact, the truck is what I came driving into from New Orleans here. So yeah, so there are shows. In fact, I'm writing a brutal, I'm going to share this. Let me go to this corner. From this moment, from here, I can project it up. I am writing a brutal sort of stand-up comedic piece with sci-fi somewhere in the near future called No Guacamole for Immigrant Haters, right? That's my t-shirts.
Yeah.
I got them on sale as well. No Guacamole for Immigrant Haters, 2025. It takes place in the near future where Latinos have taken over Gringolandia. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the first Latino woman president. And there's a taco truck at every corner. I'm just saying. So I'm actually working on that one because and you'll see my character. I got a character called Pachuco. He goes, Orale, you know what really worries me? And sometimes people say, what worries you, Pachuco?
What worries?
Sometimes people say, what worries you, Pachuco?
What worries you?
I'm so glad you asked. Because it really worries me when I hear politicians say, let's take America back. And I'm like, how far back do you want to go? Like 1950, not a good time for anyone. Not a good time to even be a white woman in 1950. Not a good time to be gay in 1950. Not even a good time to be a Jewish filmmaker in Hollywood in 1950. Google it. Elliot Hassan, he gave names. I'm just dropping them. Right, so Pachuco, I'm going to give him his own show, including what you'll meet him later. You'll meet him on Saturday. Become the character I call. They call me Agent Orange. Yeah, that's what they call me, Agent Orange. No, actually call me Orange Alert because I'm worried. Because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of them growing. It says in this invisible script that the Latino people are growing to have electoral demographic power. I don't even know what that means, but I know it ain't good. So, yes, I do perform, and I'm always writing. In fact, during the pandemic, I just finished a whole new book of poems that are really wild and radical in their composition. It's like Federico Garcia Lorca meets E.E. Cummings. You could check out those references. Any other questions? Yes, your name?
Teresa.
Teresa. Hey, Teresa.
What was your favorite place to travel?
What's that?
Where's your favorite place you've been?
The first, where I've been, okay. Morocco. I've been wanting to go to Morocco. It's the first time I set foot on the African continent. Oh, I've been wanting to go to Morocco so badly. Been wanting to go to Cuba, Havana. So I traveled all over Europe mostly. I've been in South America, just in my country, in Ecuador. But Morocco was one of my favorite places, comes immediately to mind. Marrakesh was amazing. I felt like I was totally out of the Western world. Felt like I was in the 16th century. Really quite amazing. So all over Europe. When you get a chance, if you have it, just travel as much as, get out of the country. It's really good. You know, I'm going to offer a little bit of a statistics. In the United States, 50% of its people don't even have a passport who were born here, and they never even left the country. So, American exceptionalism. I've been thinking a lot about this election. And we got two white guys in their 70s. That must be American exceptionalism. I would just say. The travel. Anything else? Any other questions?
How do your characters come to you?
You know, it's a really good question. Sometimes they just hijack me. So I've always loved stand-up comedy, and I've always loved comedians who did voices, who did all kinds of impersonations. So, you know, the Orange Alert character that holds his hand to his ear, I don't know why he does it, but it feels natural. He's like an amalgam of being here in the South, right? Mm-hmm. All these accents, and then there's the unique TV voice, the one that says, "Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, enchiladas and burritos." Some jokes I just do for me. He's sort of that announcer voice, right? And then Pachuco's like, "Orale." No, check it out. They called it Indian Removal Act. They weren't even trying to be subtle. They could have called it Operation Iraqi Freedom. Some jokes I did just for me. Indian Removal Act. They took thousands of Native people, Muskogee, Cherokee, other indigenous tribes, and they forced them to walk 1,000 miles in 1830 to Oklahoma during one of those brutal winters. Native women, indigenous men, and children. Some reports say that the soldiers actually killed little children, sniped them on their horses, killed them, little Native children, indigenous children, because they couldn't walk. So Pachuco says, can you imagine walking 1,000 miles, really walking 1,000 miles to Oklahoma? Who wants to go to Oklahoma? They don't even have a baseball team there. You know, Latinos, we love baseball. So, and then there's the deportations.
Orale, and then there's so many deportations. Have you noticed that you don't see the Taco Bell Chihuahua anymore? Remember him? Yo quiero Taco Bell, yo quiero Taco Bell, yo quiero Taco Bell. Teaching you all Spanish back in the day before Cory Booker and Beto O'Rourke. Yeah, you don't see him anymore? Because I heard, and I gotta tell you, I was in LA last year and I heard the Taco Bell Chihuahua. He had gone vegetarian. Yeah. And he was in Boyle Heights, that's the Chicago neighborhood in LA. He was at a Subway sandwich stand getting himself a foot-long veggie sandwich. And La Migra, the immigration raid at the Subway. And the Taco Bell Chihuahua was working in Hollywood. Taco Bell Chihuahua, I'll break it down for you, was working in Hollywood without papers. Yes! And it was his dream, back in the day, his coyote cousins, they crossed him across the border, right? When he was just a baby Chihuahua, and he had gotten that gig with the Taco Bell, and he killed it. He went to the audition, yo quiero Taco Bell, yo quiero Taco Bell. And they hadn't seen a talking Chihuahua back then, right? So now, that Chihuahua was living on his Hollywood retirement savings, but he got caught up by the migra, and he was sent back to Mexico. And he's a Chihuahua from Chihuahua, but they sent him to Oaxaca. And that joke only works well if you know where Oaxaca and Chihuahua is. Yeah, the characters, sometimes I find them in the script. Sometimes I find the voices in the scripts that I write. But I try to create these zany scripts, right? Very poetic. Sometimes the work is very dramatic and poetic, right? So, for example, you'll experience the spoken word poem called Alien Green. Green, I feel a little alien green, extraterrestrial green, my favorite Martian green, supposedly illegal with a green card, undocumented green, distrustful stink green, always a little jealous this green, broccoli, the many meals we pick for you green, guacamole, you can't live without green, jalapeno, revolutionary, come green, green if you pay for greenbacks that we earn, with our green veins flushed because of our resilient cactus green spirit that will boycott the Arizona venom green instead of law that makes the pus green of infected minds and polluted battery acid green souls. But I know not all you green, not all you green goes hate like that. Right? So depends, right? Depends. I fill out the script and I start, improvising. I improvise. So the scripts that I write, they're like a guide. But I improvise a lot because of my street theater, performing on streets for so much. Questions? Has everyone, have you asked a question? Would you like to ask a question?
Sure. How much do you like New Orleans? Because I'm from New Orleans. I just want to know.
Girl, I love me some New Orleans. Are you kidding? I have been through so many hurricanes. I was there with Katrina. I escaped on a stolen school bus 3 days after the levees breached. I escaped on a bus rescuing African-American families. I was on the same bus that the iconic composer Alan Toussaint was on. Getting out from New Orleans 3 days after the levees breached, arriving at Baton Rouge Airport, and then I wrote, as soon as I got out, I began writing essays, and eventually I wrote a piece called The Cone of Uncertainty in New Orleans after Katrina. I was the first so-called refugee, remember they called us refugees, that wrote and staged a performance having lived the experience of the storm as quickly as I did it. By November of that same year in 2005, I was staging my performance, The Cone of Uncertainty, in Highways Performance Space in Santa Monica, outside of Los Angeles. The director, they knew my work, he invited me. I was writing all these essays, and it's basically my love poem to New Orleans, but at the same time, I was the first one writing about the fact that the immigrants, people that were brought in, the Latin people that were brought in, were rebuilding the city. So, and then I toured national and international with that show. So yeah, I love New Orleans. I've done a lot of research on Yoruba, Voodoo, Santeria. When I wear black and red like this, it's inspiration to the Orisha that, one of the deities that I follow, named Elewa, Legba, and he opens up the crossroads. So I got involved in Santeria, Voodoo, and just to learn more about those particular practices. And I know that our voodoo priestesses have been really hard at work to making sure those hurricanes avoid us. Because isn't it amazing? Pre-Katrina, I was experiencing, like most New Orleans, right, for the 15th anniversary, some trauma, right? Because, my children were born out of, those are my gifts to New Orleans, both of them, they're post-Katrina children.
And right the week before, all of a sudden, Tropical Storm Marcos. And then Hurricane Laura were coming. It was like 24 hours. Never before in the history of hurricanes had there been two storms building 24 hours apart. And they were coming at New Orleans, the cone of uncertainty, you know, the cone of uncertainty, that's that span, right? The expand. I always found that so very interestingly poetic. They were coming at us. And all of a sudden, Marcos went that way. He went further west, and so did Hurricane Laura. And I felt terrible because Laura hit all the people in St. Charles, right?
Yeah.
So when they miss us in New Orleans, they hit somebody else. They hit some other places. But I think our voodoo priestesses are hard at work to really make petitions to to Yemaya and to the water furies. And then you had Hurricane Sally, like coming right at us again, and then Hurricane Sally did you see that? It was like a curveball turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and I tell my boys that I know the voodoo priestesses, and I know. I've been to rituals where those petitions are made, you know. What I really recommend, and I write this in my book, is understanding, and I've always seen the hurricanes as water furies, like historical water furies of the unleashed screams of the tortured African people of the Middle Passage. Now, if you look at Africa, you see where those hurricanes originate is right from the areas that they stole African people from their lands. And they make their way all the way across the Atlantic and find their way to our Gulf, right? But that's where they originate. I've always thought of them conceptually as like the water furies of the horror and terrors of the African people in the Middle Passage. So as a brown man, I do a lot of black and brown coalition work in New Orleans. My taco truck theater is a black and brown project now, but it had a diverse group as well before. And our slogans were always that Black Lives Matter. Many moons before, you know, I mean, I've known about Black Lives Matter for some time. Let's not forget Trayvon Martin, right? Michael Brown, you know, it's been happening. James Baldwin calls it the bloody catalog of the evidence. And so in the Taco Truck Theater Ensemble, our two slogans, our two prime directives are that Black Lives Matter and no human being is illegal. We have an amazing ensemble. The truck is here with me, but I'm going to be selling the truck soon because of all the COVID projects that were canceled. Thank you for that question. Anybody else want to ask one last question?
Yeah. I do.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, just so for training and perform, like people train in theater, they train in visual art, but there are a lot of performance artists who just go out there and do it. I know that Guillermo Gomez Pena was a mentor of yours.
Yes.
Do you feel how mentorship, like, is this important with performance art tradition, or is that unique in your experience?
Absolutely. Now, understand, I use in my workshops, something I call corporal commitment. Corporal is the Latin word for cuerpo, the body. Corporal commitment, I use my body a lot. And when I met Guillermo back in the mid-90s, we were doing very similar work in Spanglish, bilingualism, alters, exaggerated personas have always been part of my work. But I had studied pantomime.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing street shows, I was doing commedia dell'arte pantomime. That was the only training I had within the largest spectrum of theater. Then I also taught myself how to juggle fire. But certain things are intrinsic. Now, I've done a lot of, and it's not like I'm not a big fan of sometimes creative writing workshops, but I studied creative writing. But I just began throwing myself into performance, but at the same time, I was already performing on the streets, right? And on the streets, you develop all kinds of skills. And I had taught myself how to juggle, and then comedy just came intrinsic to me, and I was able to develop further on the streets. And then slowly, like I went to an improv theater and a physical theater class, and I didn't do well because I was like, oh my God, I'm not to sound arrogant, but I was like, I'm way past this. I've already had written a number of solo shows, right? So I think you cultivate your aesthetic. I think training can be helpful, but but to understand the power of your body is really important. So when I offer my physical training, and I work a lot with actors, like, I've been at Ohio State University, all kinds of other universities, Vanderbilt, I've done workshops, and I'll do one here. But for me, there's a couple of things that are really important. The writing, because as a performance artist, it's really important. As a performance artist, you write your own work. Like a stand-up comedian, you write your own work, you conceptualize it, and you physically inhabit your own work. And you'll see that I perform a variety of 9 characters in Aliens. And before I used to just switch voices without them being characters. Now they become more characters with Aliens, Immigrants, and Other Evildoers. This is the 10th year. But there are things that you can channel yourself, and as you develop your work, you cultivate more of your aesthetic, right? But the writing to me is really important. So the writing, and then the physicality, and sometimes I just conceptualize pieces. I think of physical conceptual pieces. Like when I was in Europe, and when I performed in Europe, language can be a barrier. So I use the body more to physically create. Like when I was in Poland, it was really quite, and I'm laughing at it because it was really quite dramatic. The Mother by Children is a classical vocalist, right? And you'll hear her piece that I recorded that we used in the opening ritual for Aliens that looks like, it's like a kabuki-like ritual. You can look up what kabuki is like. It's a Japanese form, of movement and pantomime, right? And mask and all kinds of things, because I love using masks. So you hear this classical vocalist piece. When we were in Poland at a gallery, and most performance takes place in galleries and not necessarily theaters. There I was, Claudia was singing an ode to the Black Madonna. I had set up all these candles. I had brought some dollar bills, I had set up dollar bills, but as she's singing, there was a large Red Cross, and I am nailing dollar bills to the Red Cross. And we had candles, and it looked really trippy, right? And Poland had just opened itself up to consumerism, right? And they were like, McDonald's were showing up, and McDonald's and Burger King were fighting for turf. So what I love about performance, it allows me to be really brutally creative. So during the pandemic, no theater was happening, so I began using the soundtrack pieces and created what I call video cortaditos and picante performance poems. I like to, always have hybrid language. So cortadito, if you go to Miami and you get yourself, the Cuban people like, people like talk like something. You go to Miami, you order yourself a cortadito chico. A cortadito is a strong demi-tasse cup of coffee that will knock you into tomorrow. So these video cortaditos are really strong, and Bruce France does my videos. I've been collaborating with him. He does the videos we know each other. Bruce was part of the Mondo Bizarro coalition in New Orleans. So I've got different collaborators that are really quite brilliant. And what you'll see with Aliens is you'll see all these different collaborators who have led something through. I hope you can make it. How many do you think are going to come to see the show on Saturday?
Yay.
It's going to be a test for you, test for you, test for you. They didn't tell you, but you're going to be tested.
Thank you so much for coming. This was such way more entertaining than our usual Thursday and Tuesday afternoon. So thank you so much. Y'all give him a hand.
Dr. Fox, I would like to offer to any of your students who are watching online today or in this room, you will share my email address with your class. I will offer you, anyone who wants them, if you email me first, I'll give you 2 free tickets to his show tomorrow night.
Woo.
Because we do not get artists like this in Hammond often enough, and I feel like you guys need to come out and see what he can do. So it's on me as director of the Columbia Theater. If you email me and tell me you're coming, I will have 2 free tickets waiting for you at the door.
And remember, it's Saturday, and what I will tell you is that the show will visually engage you, will make you laugh, will break your heart, will inspire you, and will entertain you at the highest level. It will do all those things. And I'm telling you, you're going to get to see some other characters.
Oh, thank you. That's an amazing offer. Thank you. Yes. All right, everyone on Google Meet, say thank you.
Gracias.
Were you there? Oh.
It's been interesting with it. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it.
Oh, man.
This computer, you up to it?
Yeah, I adjusted what I was doing over time.
Hey,
Hi.
How you
You
doing,
were great.
Michael?
I really enjoyed all of this.
Good.
I was wondering, you mentioned like writing stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any like books?
yeah, I do have some books and they'll be for sale.
You go for it,
They'll be for
Michael.
sale. They'll be for sale after the show.
Oh, okay,
I have a
awesome,
book of poetry and then, that
Well,
script for
God,
poems,
you gotta
it's
go for it.
published in an anthology. And there's a whole other book that just came out. It's got more good. I've got some great queen. What was your name again? Delana, hey Delana. Thank you.
Thank
You can go to my website, torrestama.com.
You got new ideas from you today.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. It was nice meeting you.
Dragons and Dungeons. Thank you, Delana.
Saturday.
Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, my voice is crazy.
Saturday.
Yes, I'll invite
Don't
you.
forget to email me.
Yeah, due to the fact of, one, improv, two, performance. As a DM or a player, that is half of
And
the
then
game.
that one, it's so silly.
Yeah,
So like,
my boys are into it,
make
to
it
be honest with you.
rolling.
We did a D&D birthday party for my older boy. And it was great.
Very
But
frustrating.
I'm so busy.
You know what I mean? Like,
They
just
try
trying
to
to
show me what they're doing.
But it's
But they
worth
had, my older boy
not being remote.
turned 13
Ooh,
in
it's
January.
emailing
He had a
That's the
D&D.
post.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good job.
Yay. I'll put that up. Do you need a spot?
It's my last one, I thought I'd bring you with me.
Yeah, I'll put it up on my door because it's opposite. What used to be our door. Thank you. I still have,
The
so
way you described it
they're getting
gave
me
me
a
an idea
new
for
computer so you can get
That's
that
what I
shit.
heard.
Yeah. It's like, I was like,
gave me an idea on
I've
how
been
to
using my
write
Mac. and-
a half of because they
But it would be nice to print something.
have to come.
They wanna bring it over
for
to
their
like,
backstory.
and then I'll just
Generally, like, how they
once
were
it's to
conceived.
help me
Oh,
feel
like-
a bunch of stuff.
I know. That's a great idea.
You guys are
Have a safe space.
famous
Yeah,
poet.
I was gonna, like, use my phone, like, hey, if you want to, but I'm not, I've decided all my masks are gonna live there.
Oh, hey, drunken one night stand.
Yeah.
And that's what I usually do, but I'm like, no, they're just gonna live here now.
Thank you.
Safe.
You know, it was
Woo,
really interesting.
that was great.
It was really interesting because, I mean, that's been my definition for performance art for many, many moons. And-
Yeah, I remember that. And-
Right, and
Yeah.
and it has. And then I was just